be fair. I don't have the goddamn animation for the wait screen. Thank you very much. And to be fair, it kind of amuses me that it says "be back," and I'm a child, and really, it's what I think of in life. Is I want things to amuse me. I am Mr. Brad Chester, the oldest, tallest, best hair in 40K. Here with Mr. Sean Dice with Rice. I will never fix that, by the way. I might actually add 2 more rices onto the end of it. How goes the day, my friend?
Oh man, it is. It has been an interesting week for me. I'm glad that I get to sit and talk about 40K instead of deal with everything else.
You should get another car. You know what? You should get an Eldar jet speeder. That would be way better.
That would be pretty cool. It definitely would be cool to have a Eldar, bike flying around town. We'd probably get pulled over though. But how would they catch me?
Exactly. Just hit him with a star cannon. No one has any results for that.
Just violence is always the answer.
Love it. Best hair doesn't count when you're counting your manscaping, Brad. Valentine getting 2,000 points to CSM yesterday. I can get down with that. I've been wanting to do this one for a while, everyone. I think CSM is one of the most underrated factions in the game right now. It has a silly amount of damage, and it's got a lot of different ways to play that are all legit. We're going to give a couple lists at the end here, but I have another list that I'd like to play at that point in time. So we're going to go over a lot of things with it. So as usual, we're going to talk about the 5 steps of dodgeball. Duck, dodge. Oh yeah, that's a different one. We're going to talk about preparation, identifying strengths and weaknesses, making a plan, practicing that plan, making adjustments to your plan. And we've talked about how to practice before. I really, really stand by resetting, focusing on the things that you need to fix, and either play or the list and making those adjustments and then keep playing. What happened to the Jag? I think he's actually getting, you know what? Sean's vehicle has been in the shop so long that if it doesn't have star cannons after he gets it, I will actually be disappointed.
True. Yeah, I have been going through it. I started with 3 cars and I went down to 0 for a time yesterday. And that was, everybody tells you, oh yeah, you need the second car in case the first one goes wrong. And I had the 3rd car as backup and it wasn't enough. So again, talking about some 40K, we're burning the galaxy today.
We are burning the galaxy.
It's how I feel on the inside after yesterday.
Sean, you did take 3 cars in one day. That's hard. Not a lot of people can do that.
It's true.
Steps up, everyone. We're going to talk.
Hey, everybody.
We're going to burn some stuff down. Here's the thing. We're going to talk about how Sean is never going to put a dark background and colored things on. Oh, it's like Brad's wearing glasses today for a specific reason, because these are colorblind glasses, so I can figure out what the hell he puts on these slides.
It's how I keep him in line. If you can't read the words, he has to rely on me.
Exactly. This is why you always pay the 5 points for the dozer bleed upgrade. I love these comments. Local man crashes strange flying bike at 400 miles an hour. KRs. Pippin' them. Easy one to remember. Let's talk about some gods and demon combos. One, you know what? I'm starting with my favorite thing. Not just the mortals, not just other things, but just the whole fact of every faction that has a go away, don't target me strat is bonkers, because that could change the entire turn. You're like, hey, I'm going to take out this unit. You're like, are you? Mark and Nurgle says no.
That's 100%. And as we get into this, you'll see if you're playing CSM, you should probably have some Mark and Nurgle units, because that's just crucial to the strategy. Turns out, if you're just playing massive, just horrible damage dealers, if your opponent can't even deal with them, you're just going to win some of the time. And that's basically what we're doing. Now, Brad talked about Mark Nurgle. I put my favorite one first. I think I love the fact that you just like tell some guy he loves all the Chaos Gods and then pay a CP and he rules everything is like it's
Profane Zeal is
oh my gosh,
legit.
Who would come on, guys? I mean, if you're whatever faction you're playing, if you don't love Chaos, if you do, you wish you had this strat. Everybody wishes they had this strat. This thing is nuts. Just being able, it's not even just in one phase either. You just, wherever your Chaos guy is on the table, you just slap with him. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
1000%. Give me some of these combos. I'm going to talk about building the effective list. You're going to combo it up, mainly because I think this is super hard to read, and I'm going to make some shit up if I continue to go there.
Sounds good. Okay, so everybody knows so far, if you played against Chaos or you're playing with Chaos, Abaddon plus either some Terminators or some Chosen is just a very effective paying points for damage and durability. Why? Abaddon has all the God keywords, which means you can just use any of your strats on your big block of Terminators or your block of Chosen if you're, adverse to extremely expensive units, like Brad. Then we have the Hellbrute plus a bunch of Forgefiends. What does the Hellbrute do? The Forgefiends lay down damage with triple Ectoplasm cannons. The Hellbrute, as long as it's standing within 6 inches of them, is going to let them get both halves of the Dark Pact. You don't have to work or do anything for this. You just plop a Hellbrute down, and he gives all of that to everybody around him. Now, you could give it to, Obliterators that drop in and want to use their once per game indirect. You could give it to, I don't know, stand them next to Abaddon's unit and just really go to town on 2 knights at once.
Double packed with full rerolls is bonkers town. Lethal hits plus exploding hits is amazing.
Yeah, and you can just and that isn't a joke, I'm not being facetious when I say you can just park it next to 2 knights and pick both of them up. It is just ridiculous. Then this is one that started in the beginning of the edition, at the beginning when we saw the index, and has dropped off a little bit. And that is an Undivided Master of Possession with 10 Possessed. Obviously, this is your, hard-hitting melee unit outside of Abaddon's unit. And with Liber Hereticus, it's like having your Hellbrute next to this unit at all times. So you can send it shooting off into the distance to take down things and not have to stand next to your Hellbrute the whole game, which is great. Then we have my favorite, if you want to check out Still Frosty Gaming. I did a battle port with Brandon where I took some Accursed Cultists, some Dark Communes, and plopped them next to Abaddon.
They're so good. I think that's one of the most underrated things in the Chaos Space Marine. The Dark Commune gives them some extra mojo. The Accursed Cultists are already fairly durable for what they are, especially for the points. And the Dark Communes basically just kind of go into them like an Oreo and make that a fantastic combo. Just push them together, and with full rerolls, with a ton of attacks, too.
Yeah, and this unit is, it is... so what do you get here? Okay, so you get 16 models in a Max Accursed Occultist unit. You get an invuln from Abaddon, usually is how I like to play them. Now, some people, as you'll see later on, who have been doing well, just slap the Marker Nurgle on it and intend to use their strat on it the whole game. That's fine. That's a perfectly reasonable way to play. You can use Abaddon to give them a 4-up invuln, or you can just, fling them at people. Because once per game, they get advance and charge and +1 to hit and wound, which means you can just, have them take some casualties, regrow, because that's also one of their abilities, is to regrow a big torment or regrow 3 little guys, and then just run straight at your opponent and tie up an objective with a bunch of OC2 bodies. So that is one I have been enjoying. Its great nemesis was Desolators, because it turns out if you have any amount of Desolators, they will always pick up the unit with Oath Moments. But Dark Commune plus Accursed Cultist stocks are on the rise, and Desolator stocks are rock bottom right now. So I am really liking that style.
It's a big deal in that, too. They do a surprising amount of damage, and having a shit ton of OC on nothing's invulnerable in 10th edition. We have some serious damage coming your way. Even though they said that damage is going to be less and the rerolls are going to be less, we're not going to talk about that. But these guys are like annoying to get rid of, and they can just steal your objective for a turn or two, and all of a sudden you're down 5 or 10 points, and or locked into your board edge. They can do just a lot of things to help you win the game as CSM. It's not like their total damage, it's just their total annoyance factor is off the charts.
Yeah, and when you're playing these, somebody mentioned it earlier, when you're playing this little ball of death of some Forgefiends and a Hellbrute and potentially some Obliterators, those require completely different answers than, I don't know, 32 Accursed Cultists running around the board. And when your opponent has to make hard decisions on what they want to focus on, the Nurgle strat is just going to be so annoying for them to deal with, because they commit to a side and then it doesn't work out.
Yep.
Finishing up with the condos, this is one that Mark Perry turned me on to, and I have really liked it after playing it. It's Noise Marines plus Raptors. So what Noise Marines do is, we'll get to, they're very cheap, very efficient for 85 points. You get the Blastmaster with some decent shooting. They have assault weapons, so they can advance and do actions. But the key thing here is when you shoot a unit, they must take a battle shock test. And you go, okay, whatever. Okay, well, if you bring 3 units of Noise Marines, you can throw 3 battle shocks on a unit. Pretty good. Mark was telling me the story of he just kept on shooting the Custodes brick until it was battle shocked. How did he do it? Well, he parked some Raptors in front of him, and Raptors have the ability for everybody within 6 inches is -1 to battle shock tests. So Raptors go up, they stand on the objective just barely out of the way, and then Mark just shot them until they couldn't use their -1 damage strat, and then unloaded on them with Obliterators, Forgefiends, everything else. And, if you can pull that off, that's great. If you want to include it in your list, that's definitely a direction you could go. The next
shenanigans.
One is, yeah, it's just all shenanigans. The next one's Hero Hammer. This does not mean any one particular thing. CSM have some okay relics that you can give if you want to play that style. They have a lot of very efficient characters. If you just want to play 3 Chaos Terminator Lords and 3 Chaos Lords, they're actually just pretty solid by themselves. Yes, you're giving up Assassinate, but if you're not giving up anything else, they're really annoying to deal with, especially if some of them are Mark of Nurgle, and then you can't even shoot them. The final one is a little more straightforward. You load up some Havocs in a transport and you unload them. Havocs have the, you give them Undivided, you let them reroll hits and wounds. You can make them las cannons if you need to deal with anti-tank, or you can give them chain cannons to just unload volume into, 120 Termagants.
So excited to roll that many dice. Take a unit of chain cannons. I don't even care how effective it is. It just feels awesome to roll that many dice.
Exactly. And that's just fun to do, and it's very straightforward. So if you're looking for a very straightforward unit out of a very diverse and complicated index, definitely throw some Havocs in a Rhino and just watch them go to town on somebody.
Let's talk about some of the keys to building an effective list, because these are some of the things that you have to do all the time, which is, how am I scoring secondaries? How am I holding my objectives? What's my identity? And you're always doing a juggling act between things that score, things that screen, and things that kill, because you have to have enough kill, but you don't want to be only killer, then you're not going to be able to score. But if you're only scoring, then you're not killing enough, and someone can just damage check you. So it's important that you always maintain this, and that is one of the harder things to do with Chaos. But Chaos has a lot of really cool units that are dirt cheap, that either have 4 deploy, Nurglings, fantastic for taking early game secondaries. They have a pretty awesome OC of 0, but they can't do any secondary you want because you can. They're not as unreliable as they used to be. But that used to be one of their key rules, by the way. But Blue Scribes, Changeling, all can come in with allies, very cheap for what they do. Lone operatives, things like Noise Marine, Warp Talons can get up and do what you need to do. Holding an objective, Cultists, sticking an objective, making it so if they move off it, they still are killed off it, still counts as having it. What is the army's identity? Weirdly enough, it's a Death Star without being a Death Star, just because of the fact that pretty much the Don has everything circling around him as the sun, and because full rerolls, especially again when you have lethal hits and you have exploding hits, is a big deal. You oftentimes are just getting more hits than you have shots, and it's so nuts, especially with those lethal hits on that. You're just like, I'll pick up anything that's not a 6, to be honest, because I want those auto wounds. So, blam, rolling a shit ton of dice. It's so amazing on that. You have a lot of ability. Now, that means that you have to get into, when you're looking at that list, and we'll go into, prepping for it, you have to make a lot of decisions as a chaos player, and we'll talk more about that as we go with the practice, but you have to figure out when I want to trade, when I'm just looking to put the beats on people. So, and as usual, event rulings are not as huge of a deal with this, but they can be if you're playing a more melee counter style, which is, can Dirty Abaddon of the boys go through a wall, WCT style? Am I getting stopped by, being 1.1 inches away from the wall? Those are things you need to know. Is this going to be player place? Is this going to be GW? John makes a great point on this, and just shooting naturally does better on player place because you can set up your own lanes. Are you going over to England? You're going to play on UKTC terrain, which is wildly open in the 2023 set. So, you have to make some decisions on what's going to be in your army based on what is going to be the missions and the terrain. Let's identify some strengths and weaknesses.
All right, hit us, good cop.
I was just about to say, I get the strengths, you get the weaknesses. You know who's got the best overall offense in 40K? The Don and whoever the hell stands next to him. Abaddon, Profane Seal, Dark Packs plus the Hellbrute. Dark Packs are, you usually have to choose one or the other. Hellbrute says, nah, just take them both. It seems awesome. You can get some nutbag offense with that. I mean, I don't know if you guys have played CSM on the board. There's times in the game where you're just kind of standing there going, what happened now? How many? What? I thought you just shot me with that one thing. Yeah. Didn't they have 12 shots? Yeah, but here's the auto wounds. Here's the explosions. They have very, very versatile builds. And I love this a lot. I said it a little bit with the Tyranid book, and I hope we get this more with the actual Chaos Codex. Big fan. But you can make wildly different lists that I think are all viable on the table in a tournament right now. A lot of them are going to revolve around the Don, but you can bring a lot of different styles, be it tons of bodies, vehicles, things of that nature. You've got a lot of mobility with a lot of things between Talons, Noise Marine, the Slaanesh strat. You can get around the board, and things like Advance and Charge once is really big. You have surprising amounts of ability to get around the board. You've got Advance and Charge. You've got Charge and Fall Back. Either that and shoot. Unable to be shot with the Nurgle strat outside of 12. You've got rerolls on everything because of Abaddon. You've just got a lot of really, really versatile, high damage things that you can do with this army. And now I'm going to talk to the end of fun over here.
That's right. I am the dark side of chaos now. So one of the big problems with CSM when you're playing them on the table, usually, now some people are trying to mitigate this in some of the lists you'll see, but usually there's a lower unit count. And that's because some of our units are a little expensive, rightly so for how much offense they can put out. And some of them got a little bit of a points hike last time. So that is definitely a weakness, where if your opponent can trade effectively into you, they're going to be ahead 99% of the time. Then this is something that comes up often when they're trading into you, is you do have slightly questionable durability. Your Armor of Contempt costs 2, which means you cannot just spam it on your units. And then outside of the Nurgle strat, you're just a Marine. You were just a Marine vehicle. You were just a Marine body. And as most people know, picking up Marines is relatively easy without Armor of Contempt.
Yep.
Then we are very reliant on our stratagems. So if you're not taking, there are 2 ways in the CSM book to gain CP, and I think you should be taking one of them. The first is the Dawn. If you hate big expensive units and you don't like killing 2 knights in one combat, you don't have to take him. And you instead could take the little Zeech relic that lets you farm CP the same way.
Yeah. Deflex was saying that a lot of the lists were skipping the Don. Those guys are fools because he looks awesome and he's also Abaddon. But you can make a good list with stuff.
You can. And I'm kind of with Brad. I always have the Don in there. Come on, man. Any list that you tell me like, yeah, I can pick up 2 knights, I'm like, haha, really? And they're like, no, really, I just pick up 2 knights.
He's full of righteous anger.
Yeah, righteous. Yeah, down with the Emperor. And then this is somewhat mitigated by choices you can make. They do have middling secondary play. If your opponent can keep you contained, it's really hard for you to get actually up the field and score your points. Not because you don't have speed, but because you oftentimes don't want to just throw away your units for points, like, I don't know, Brad's Orcs. Just throw away everything, get all the points. You don't try to do that in this army. It will not work out well for you.
Bring more trash. Much trash. It's good times, though. Let's talk about making a plan. Lean into your strengths or mitigate your weaknesses. I am way bigger on leaning into my strengths because mitigating your weaknesses typically makes you sad that your army can't do something as well as somebody else, to be perfectly honest. You have to mitigate it somewhat, but again, I'm going to say this every time. Don't make your army 5% better against this certain thing and 20% worse against everything else. Let's talk about some key units with our plan. The Don. He doesn't show up all the time, but man, it is hard not to take the Don with full rerolls, all keywords, generating CP. Woo! Forgefiends. Consistent devastating wounds and long-range shooting. Undivided orb. I mean, you actually make a case for all of the marks on this, to be perfectly honest with you. He can do some serious works. Terminators and Chosen have great melee for durability for the points. They've got some issues with getting themselves places, but good. Noise Marines are crazy. They got so much cheaper now. They've got a decent amount of outputs, but they've got a lot of tricks to them too. Obliterators. Man, I don't think I'm ever going to make a Chaos army and not include one unit of Obliterators. One, their fluff's amazing. They've always been pretty damn good, and they are nuts with full rerolls and double packs. Talons. Talons also have really cool fluff. Matter of fact, read their entry. They are just nutbag guys. Warp Talons are sketchy as hell with everything that happened to them. But super fast. They punch up most of the time on that. Accursed Cultists, take them. They are so good. For the wounds per point, Accursed Cultists are nuts. Throw a Dotcrom unit on top of them. It is just a bundle of annoyance for your opponent. Havocs, cheap volume, or the last cam battery. It's just, Havocs are just pretty nice. Possessed, I love that. Lichguard who? So, Possessed can do some real damage. I think they're actually underutilized. They can bang pretty hard. Chaos Spikers went down like a significant amount there. I don't like Chaos Spikers in those big units that you try to take with them. Just take your Chaos Spikers, zoom, take a secondary, be happy that you scored points. Hellbrute. Hellbrute, for me, take at least one of these Hellbrutes just because it gives you 6-inch aura of getting both packs instead of just one, which is just a hell of a drug. It feels really, really good.
Yeah, and somebody last time wanted us to add in, part of making the plan is knowing if you want to take tactical, if you want to take fixed. I think a lot of the times you can build a list that plays tactical very well in this edition, outside of some armies which naturally struggle with it, like Knights. I think that for the most part with CSM, you can play tactical and perfectly, build your list accordingly, bring some Nurglings. You don't have to worry about sending a Forgefiend to the corner to do investigate signals or something like that, or walk to the middle of the board. You could do fixed. CSM is one of those armies that you definitely can look at their list and say, you give up almost max points to assassinate and bring it down. All right, I'll try it. And you have to know how to play accordingly. And a lot of times, Brad and I don't include that in Make a Plan because it requires, like a 3-page document on all right, if your opponent does this, then you do this, then you do this.
Yeah, it's also based on the mission too. If you're playing through something like Hidden Supplies, you're just like, I'm probably going to cleanse because there's 6 objectives out here. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's some of those are just like, oh, this is easy peasy. Let's be on it. So yes. So it is more difficult on that because they don't have just a huge amount of just trash out there trying to churn up. So you have to look at what your opponent gives you and then go from there. Let's talk about practice. Matter of fact, you're going to talk about practice and then I'm going to tell you how wrong you are in case you are.
Excellent. I love it. So the first thing we always say, and we are going to continue to say it in every single one of these, You need to be time efficient, and you need to be talking with your practice partner. It does not matter who it is. It doesn't matter if you've been best friends with them for 20 years or if you just met them in the shop 10 minutes ago. Talk with them. 40K is a game about communication. The better you communicate with your opponent while you're practicing, the better you will communicate in tournament, and the better your games will start to look. Because suddenly the things that you're missing or you're not thinking about, your practice partner, whoever it is, will point them out to you. Get comfortable doing that, always.
This is what we say. Sorry about that. I just want to go into the time efficient. Being time efficient doesn't mean that it's going to be like a short thing. We're not saying, go. Being time efficient is learning from your mistakes immediately, resetting, talking through. Like your and I's game, I just played one with Anna on the Patreon stream, and we played another 2 hours and got, turd 2. And the thing is that you have to figure out what are the best. Well, what happens if we do this? You're constantly trying to get 10 games worth of information into one game by consistently asking the questions of, well, what is the best move? What would be worse? If I did this, what would you do? And then just keep going back, which is why it's so important to communicate with your practice partner and getting that feedback from each one of you. Because a lot of times you think that maybe a move is going to be really good. They're like, yeah, but if you do this, you're actually opening up your backfield, or I will steal this objective, or I'll overwatch this. So it's important to have that conversation going the entire time.
It's also, and I thank you, Brad, for picking up on it, because I did make a mental note to go back to it. But being time efficient, it is okay. People got really upset with us sometimes. It's okay if you only play 2 turns of the game. You are going to learn so much in 2 turns if you are talking with your opponent the whole time about what you need to do, that it is absolutely worth it. And I say it every time, and I'll say it again. You don't have enough time in your day to play enough games to where if you play out the whole game, you're going to learn everything you need to. I mean, a normal 40K game is going to take 3 hours. Most people don't have 3 or 6 hours every single day to play, and there's like 20 missions. When you consider there's like over 26 different armies to play and 20 missions, I mean, that's over 400 combinations just right there.
I was just about to say that's more than 3.
Yeah, we're looking at more hours than there are in several months for you to get every combination once. So you need to be able to do this if you're going to improve. It's okay if you don't have 6 hours every other day to play this game. You can still improve, get a lot better, and play at a high level by taking these steps, by saying what Brad and I are saying to do. Just take time and talk with your opponent and get good at that. And suddenly you will start seeing exactly what you need to do in every matchup.
Love it. Remember. I was about to just... What? It's not even November. The thing is that remember that you have to mitigate your trading, because you're not going to have a ton of units on the board. And you maybe there is some armies in Chaos that you could bring that are going to be effectively hordes, but typically you're not. So you have to look at where you're going. Threat overload work, especially when you're talking about like GW terrain. I play a lot on that. You're going to hit those flanks super, super hard. Things like Obliterators, which have once a game indirect. You can really harass people and then put the gas on when you want to put the gas on. Because as a Chaos, you're going to slow this game down a lot. You're going to have like an exchange, 1 or 2 big exchanges, and that's going to be like kind of the game on that, because you're just going to try to dominate an area and delete your opponent. So it's very big to make sure that can I do this? Is this something that it's worth trading with me? So the big deal is, huge deal is practice weighing damage versus scoring. Because of the fact that you have a ton of damage, but you also need to score. So you kind of have to make that pros con sheet all the time.
Right, and that's a big part of it is, and why Brad and I were mentioning the Mark Nurgle is, the Mark Nurgle can mitigate trading. If your Eldar opponent moves a Hornet out and blows up, I don't know, a Rhino or something, and you move your Nurgle Forgefiend out and pick up the Hornet, they just can't move and shoot that Forgefiend. They could move, a Fire Prism out and look at your Forgefiend, and you just go, okay, it can't shoot me. And they go, huh.
Like this is, right. And this is how it feels. Oh, this is terrible. Screw you, Eldar. My favorite faction still, but still. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, you should. So look to set up those situations when you're practicing. It is okay. People are switching around marks. Some people just like go easy mode and just mark of Nurgle everything. I don't think you need to do that. With a little bit of practice, you can mix and match. You can have a little bit of Nurgle, a little bit Undivided.
Well, it's also when we get, because already we have a reason to take multiple marks, but especially getting ready for when we get a codex. You know what I mean? That you're going to have to be used to having different marks on the table, unless you're playing one focused army. You know what I mean? But they have their own book, so it doesn't matter. But let's talk about making the adjustments after we figure out what doesn't work. I was going to take the end of that with the beginning of the making adjustments.
Right.
It's important when you're practicing to figure out what isn't working. And that could be a combination of your play and your army. So a lot of times it's not just either or, it's both. I need to play this a little bit different, but maybe a different unit or a different unit loadout would be a little bit better for it. So do I want a little bit more stuff? Do I need a little bit more damage? Do I need a little bit more punchy in the face? Do I need a little bit more hero hammer in my life? It's important that when you make those adjustments, you identify what was working and what wasn't working. And I always make the joke of who is your MVP and who's on the chopping block every time you play. So it's important that you know that. That's why I'm such a big proponent of figuring out each turn. You can play the whole game, but you want to talk through each turn to figure out what was actually working and what was just either bad dice or good dice. You know what I mean? So it's very, very important to make sure that you identify things that are problematic for you. Problematic matchups, problematic situations. Do I need more AP? Do I need more volume? Do I need more scoring? What are the options? Okay, I need more scoring. What are my options? I need more damage. What are my options? Also, what am I losing? And you do that because when you're making adjustments, you don't want to make yourself weaker just by, I need at least one more shooting in it. You're like, I'll just cut these 3 things that were scoring. And you're like, oh shit, now I don't score as well. So you have to really understand what you're adding, what you're taking away.
And that has been a big thing. Learning the chaos indexes. You do not need to put yourself in a box.
Yo, hold on. We got pajamas in the house with my favorite quote of the day. My MVP is always me, and I always chop my opponent. Thank you for the jersey, good. Also, Ellen just got done winning. He's got the Captain American shield after winning the Armed Forces with Chaos Space Marines.
Nice, well done. So hopefully we're not falling on or saying the wrong things here. We got an expert in the house. And I'm being surrounded by gnats.
Let's not go that far. It's
yeah, Brad doesn't like it. Anyway, so there are many paths to greatness you can take as chaos. You don't have to stick to one list. You don't have to put yourself in a box. Just make sure you're following the principles that we're outlining here. And if you are sticking to that and communicating with good practice, you will find exactly what works for you. There are, I know of no less than 3 great chaos players I'm talking to, and all of their lists are entirely different.
Wildly different. I think that the index is very, very strong. That's why I said I think by far this is the most underrated. CSM may not be the best, but it's definitely the most underrated. So
yeah,
it's a big deal. Is Alan on 2 accounts right now?
I appreciate that, Alan. Thank you.
I love that you just showed up with 2 different YouTube accounts. Thank you, sir. Chaos is strong, but the guns are stronger. It is a big deal to really lay down the damage when it's time. Laying down the damage, mitigating your shots back. I cannot state this army does a huge amount of damage, but has a lower amount of models. Don't just run your shit out there and try to murder people. Run your shit to the side and try to murder a flank. Isolate things. It's important because I see chaos players all the time. They do a huge amount of damage. They're like, I'm going to cripple my opponent. And their opponent's got enough that they just delete the chaos player then. They're like, I did so much damage. You're like, yeah, you could have done that, but if you would have done it for 2 turns, it would have been even better. So
that's exactly what it is. That's why, people, that's why I mentioned, people trying to do Nurgle strat everywhere. And it's like, bud, you get one. You get one Nurgle strat in their shooting phase. If every one of your units has it, you just moved out in the open and they went, cool, I'm not killing that one guy. I guess I'll kill everything else.
Well, let's talk about it like one of the things that you're going to want to do with your chaos on this, though, because you can hit a flank, especially if you place your terrain, so you've got something, or you're playing on a GW, which has something on top and bottom. Delete a flank, and then that unit that kind of has to go in the open, where you can't really get it where it goes, that's the thing you pop the Nurgle strat on. So you delete the flank, you make it so you mitigate almost all shots because they don't have that many things that can get over there. And then the thing that you can't mitigate how many shots are coming back at you, that's what you pump the Nurgle strat on and go, no, you can't target me. So you don't need to have it everywhere. You just need to target priority, movement priority, as far as I kill anything that has the movement to get back at me.
Yeah, and that's a big thing as we get into a big thing you're going to see is playing CSM where you get a close loss is that they have just traded for primary a little bit and then they're going to win out on secondaries, because if you allow them to play back far enough as the CSM player, they will. You have scary damage and the inability to be shot in certain places. So they're just going to zoom out units out to, proverbially go to the killing floor, take away your primary. They don't intend on being there the next turn. They intend on just scoring their secondaries while you pick up trash. A big thing to help with that is use one of the best facets of Chaos, which is you get to take allies. You can take knights if you'd like. I think brigands are one of the standout choices. But really, you want the demons. You want those Nurglings. Brad and I just go nuts over Nurglings, and you can quote me on that.
They're so good. They're so cheap.
They do anything you want. Just all across the game in almost any army that can take them. And more importantly, if you are going to focus on dealing damage to your opponent, 35 points to just throw out a unit that scores you some points is exactly what you want to be doing. So if you have access to Nurglings, try throwing out a few into your list. Just watch how they play. Start them in reserve, or for example, against Warlords, prevent your opponent from running straight at you.
Move blocking. Move blocking is so important, so underutilized. Getting in your opponent's way, jamming them between those two buildings, having things that don't have breachable. Still, getting in the way is such a big deal. Make that unit a problem for tomorrow, Brad. I kill over here, block this. 35 points is delightful.
And often, I hear people like, why am I taking Worglings? Why am I taking Crude Hounds? I don't want to do that. Just try it. Try one and have a real dedicated use for it in the game. And when you walk away from that game, I guarantee you'll be like, hey, that little 30-point unit, it actually did the thing I wanted to do. That's pretty good. And then suddenly you'll have 2 in your list. And then if you're like me, you start with 6 Nurglings and work your way backwards. But that's neither here nor there.
And then you'll have all of them.
Yeah. Finally, I've said this multiple times. Brad has said it. If you are struggling with the units you are bringing in Chaos, change it up. Use some of the methods that Brad and I are talking about here. Get some good practice in and change up what you're bringing. You have almost more options than anyone else. If you are a Chaos Marine player, just very specifically, you can pull from several different directions. You have multiple different options in your index, and your rules are generally strong. So you almost aren't going to go wrong as long as you are making that plan for what you want to do.
Remember, though, that you have to have the core of what you want your army to do. You're swapping out 400 or 500 points. You have to know what your army core is. And if you don't know that, feel free to go back all the way back to the drawing board. But you want to make sure if you're making adjustments and you're practicing, that you're not making gigantic changes all the time, because you're not going to get the secret sauce by changing too many things. So
100%.
Let's talk about it. Deal with it. Preparation. What do we got to do?
First off, you got to know your combos. If you're a Chaos player, you have some units that just work together extremely well. A Hellbrute standing around a bunch of Forgefiends. Knowing how to put your marks on your guys. Knowing that Abaddon plus Terminators can pick up 2 knights. And if you're saying to yourself, how did they do that? And you're a Chaos player, go look at it. I promise you they can pick up 2 knights in one activation. You're going to have to take a real good look at what your stratagems can do and what your units
hell of a drug.
100%. Then you're going to make you're not going to make a plan specifically yet. You're going to look at what units you can score with. You can look at your Chaos Demon allies and see how you can incorporate those into your list to score things like Bind Enemy Lines, Investigate Signals, even just Area Denial, dropping some guys down and doing it, so that your massive Chaos units don't have to walk out and use Nurgle strat. Instead, you get to decide how you want to use your Nurgle strat, instead of just letting it be predetermined by what cards you drop.
Nurgling's for life. So
100%.
And it's a big deal in them. I like the identify strength and weaknesses. But yeah, like, we're trapped in here with them. They're trapped in here with me. Take out, you have just overwhelming firepower, and you've got the ability to fire some indirect and things of that nature. You've also got some units that can really trade up that have some good speed. Take out their trash, especially when you're playing Eldar, you're playing Tau, you're playing one of the big scaries. Take away their ability to score. Nobody wants to cleanse with a 6-man crisis unit, or back when they existed, Wraith Knights. They don't want to do anything with that. Take away their ability to do actions. Nobody wants to investigate signals with fire prisms. It's one of those things where take away their scoring and they have to make real decisions from there. And that's when you're getting people. When you're asking enough questions, that's when they start getting them wrong. That's when they start moving wrong. They start exposing a unit. They start having to do something. Maybe they didn't score. Maybe they try to damage you, and all of a sudden they've missed out on a secondary or two per turn, and then you're extending that lead out over them.
100%. And as you're making your plan, really focus on, you have great damage. Even your smallest Noise Marine unit, even your Chaos Biker sometimes, with Dark Packs, you're going to be putting out tons of damage that you otherwise shouldn't be able to. Use that and your Nurgle strat in conjunction to make your opponent play your game. You absolutely, even against Tau, you do not have to play their game. They absolutely have to play yours, because when every one of your units can deal crippling damage and suddenly can't be shot back, they're going to have to play around you if you make them. If you just hang back, if you just play scared, if you just, hide the whole time, you are not taking advantage of what the game designers gave you, what Games Workshop gave us. Practice on making that a thing. Practice on moving out in the right way to the right position, as Brad said, the corners, and making them deal with you.
And pre-measure. I cannot state this enough. Not just what you're going to do to get to objectives to score, but where your opponent's going to go. So I need to be able to go far enough to be able to see, to be able to shoot, to be able to delete what I want to delete. But I also want to be in there in such a way that I'm pre-measuring my opponent's moves, and I want to mitigate. You can't stop all of the shots, but you can mitigate a lot of the shots. And that means that maybe that Forgefiend doesn't die because only one unit got to see it and they didn't finish it off. And especially with vehicles and things of that nature, being bracketed means almost nothing now. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal.
Especially when you're rerolling potentially all hits and wounds.
Yeah, exactly. You're rerolling anyways. Who cares? So it's not a big deal. So it's important that you continually measure where your opponent can be, where your opponent can see. See, those rhyme too. I'm a rapper. What? I could be. You don't know that. I don't even know where to go with that.
you had to practice. You practice reining Brad in, but you also practice being on the table where you need to be and giving your opponent bad choices with the Nurgle strat. Yes, we're going to keep saying it over and over again. It's really good.
It might be the most besides the rerolls and packs, the Nurgle strat might be the most powerful thing in Chaos. It's just so ridiculous. It's just, you can again delete a flank, have a unit in the middle-esque, Nurgle strat that. And the thing is that you can actually start to bully your opponent's movement phase, because if you move very hard, say to the right flank, and then I have a Forgefiend in the middle, or whatever I'm going to put the Nurgle strat on, you can actually start to mess with your opponent's movement because they know that you're going to do the Nurgle strat, so they just won't even bother dedicating things. So you might not even have to pop the strat over there because they don't line things up with it to be able to shoot, because they already know that that's a thing. So you can start to literally play head games with your opponent's movement and make them make less than optimal moves, and you take advantage of those less than optimal moves. Shorty B, that is a good rapper name for me.
Shorty B and the Bieber. Is that our
That is our
is that our
band.
names now?
That is our
all
band.
right. I respect it. And please, when you're playing CSM, don't let them just trade endlessly with you.
No.
Don't
please.
do that. You're not designed to do that. Don't let them do that to you. Finally, Brad's favorite part, you got to make adjustments.
You should be constantly making adjustments. And this is a big thing because you're going to make adjustments based on what tournament you're going to. What's the terrain? What are the rules? What are the missions they're going to run? Also, we're going to start getting a codex every month, every 2 months, whatever it's going to be. You're going to have to include new things every single time you go to places because there's going to be a new army out. Marines are coming out. Tyranids just came out. You constantly have to include that into, is my army optimized for what I'm going to see? And we're not chasing the meta. We want to be aware of the meta. You just have to know that you have to be able to kill 5 dudes with a 3-up save and 2 wounds on an objective. That's a thing you have to be able to do. It's the most common thing you're going to see. So you constantly have to adjust to where you're going and what you're thinking. So
100%. All right, you ready, Brad? You ready for the list?
I'm ready for a helping hand. It made me sad because you don't have all of the stuff that I want. Bye.
Yeah, this is Brad has his own way. I figured this is a more all-rounded list for this type of strategy. It's a helping hand because you're going to help your opponent put their models away because you're just such a nice guy. You really are. So first we got Abaddon. Brad and I aren't going to leave home without him. As you'll see in just a second, you do not have to take Abaddon if you do not want to. I like killing 2 knights in a phase, so I'm going to take him. That's just how it's going to go for me. Then you have your standard 10 cultists. They're going to stick you back objective, and we're not going to worry about indirect with them because we're not always going to use the Nurgle strat on them. Most of the time, we're going to stick our home objective, and they're going to back up and string out and screen our backfield. Then we have 10 Chaos Terminators to go with Abaddon.
I love it.
Yes.
Nope, they get the mark of Abaddon.
100%. Give them whatever mark you want. Doesn't matter. They're never going to shoot Abaddon with precision and take him out. So, and I don't know what crazy person is going to charge that unit. Don't do it. So that's why, it's whatever you want of them. Again, in the description after this, we'll have exact war gear and everything too, if you want to check it out. Then we have some 4 Obliterators. I keep mine as Undivided because I am going to rely on positioning correctly. And when my opponent respects that I have positioned correctly, I'm going to drop them down next to my Hellbrute and out of line of sight, get exploding 6s and lethal hits, indirect, rerolling everything. And suddenly they'll have really just fallen prey to, well, I didn't want to be in the open and I couldn't be hidden, so I just lost units. And I want my opponent to be in that position. Then we got 15 Warp Talons. Warp Talons are much improved. With Slaanesh, we're going to make use of Advance and Charge. And with exploding 5s in melee and rerolling all wounds, thanks to their twin linked, you can just send them out to trade up into something. They're just going to put out 20 attacks with exploding 5s.
And I try to grab trash with this so big. Like, if you can get multiple units, just beat up on your opponent's trash. It feels weird sometimes, but if you can grab 2 or 3, and a lot of times you can, because you're just going to stretch these out, because you'll pick up, one guy picks up all 4 Crude Hounds, one guy picks up, a small unit or whatever, your other cultists, you know what I mean? You can really pick up some serious shit.
Yeah, and really stretch how you're going to use them too, because once you are exploding 5s, hitting on 3s, and then re-rolling all wounds, you really are not going to need that many guys to pick up trash. Then we have what I think is going to be standard in a lot of lists, which is 2 Forgefiends and a Hellbrute. I have one as Nurgle. They both have all Ectoplasma. I don't think there's another way I'd play them. This is just what you do. Yes, they're blast.
This is the way.
I am not worried about my opponent tagging my things. If you are trying to tag my stuff, you are going to lose. That is just how it's going to go. One is Nurgle. As I said before, we're going to position with this one, and then we're going to bring the hammer with the other one. And the Hellbrute is also Nurgle, just so nobody can, advance a fire prism 20 inches and then shoot me with 2 others. That's definitely not a thing you have to worry about. So that's why I've got Nurgle on him. So there's no sniping your real big buff piece out. Then we've got 3 units of Nurglings because, as I said, I really do start with 6 and then I work my way backwards.
It's a big deal on that. The Nurglings are such a great piece on this. let's go into what George brought. Third Warzone Houston.
You want to hit us with this one, Brad, or you want me to take it?
I got it. This is in all white. I can actually read it. Double Dark Commune. Double Mop. Unit of 10 Cultists of Nurgle. Chaos Rhino of Nurgle. 2 units of 16 Accursed Cultists that the Dark Communes go into. 2 units of 5 Chosen Undivided. 2 Forgefiends, 1 Nurgle, 1 Undivided. A unit of Undivided Obliterators. Double Warp Talons. 3 Nurglings, and the Blue Scribes. This is a list that is literally just trying to take the board, deal damage when people get a little too fruity on it, and you just blast, and you have so much trash going all over the place that you have just options with it. This is the thing. I really think that there's a lot of different ways you can build CSM and really, really do well. I just think that, again, this is the most underrated army in the game. I don't think it's the number 1 army in the game. I just think it's the most underrated. Everybody's always just surprised when they play, because you don't see a ton of games being played with CSM still. And I really think that the Forgefiends, the Obliterators, are just doing crazy damage. Accursed Cultists are just bonkers to me. Throwing the Dark Communes with them, it's just a obscene amount of wounds for the points, and they're just nutty. Also, I just decided to cut off George's name, so.
Yeah, this is really showcasing that you can build your chaos list how you'd like to, as long as you are including some key points. I saw a comment earlier before the stream started on I bought 2,000 points of CSM. I hope I did it right. I think that whatever you buy is going to be useful. I do think there are some standouts. I think that just having 10 cultists, good decision. I think having at least 2 Forgefiends and 4 Obliterators will make you happy because they won't ever let you down. They may not do amazing, but you're not going to be like, okay, this guy doesn't belong in my list. Aside from that, really it's up to you. What you enjoy playing and what you enjoy aesthetically. Chaos have some amazing models between the demons and demon engines, crazy looking characters, mutants with the Accursed Cultists. So it really just is up to you. Again, take what Brad and I are giving you here. This is free. This is exactly how we build lists and how we prepare for tournaments and what we think about. And just make something where you have a plan for each unit. You know what you want to be doing. You are not trying to, I don't know, play all melee in a Tal list or, whatever. Just stick to your army's identity and it'll be okay as long as you know what your units can do.
And I'm going to give us a shameless promotion here. Warlord, well, damn, I haven't been keeping up with any of the changes. How do I even catch up? Well, luckily, Sean and I have made a series of videos that you can catch on Dice with Rice or Death or Glory. And we've been talking about all the changes so far.
100%. And you can actually just watch videos in order, and Brad and I almost go word for word exactly what changes. If you want to check out our Deal With It New Meta video, I literally listed out what I think every army's at the top level, what things are going to change and what you're going to see more of for every single army. And for armies that didn't change. Maybe you're like, oh, what does this mean for my army? Well, sometimes nothing. You're just good.
There you go.
You're good to go. You just get better because the top dogs got knocked down a little bit.
That's a tough question. What do you guys think is the top 3 armies? I don't know. They truncated everything together so much.
They did. I think that's going to be a question dependent on your area. Whereas before, I would have just said Eldar, I would have said Eldar, GSC, and Custodes, and then with an asterisk on Imperial Knights, depending on how your tournament's ruling terrain. Now, all of those took hits. Some took more hits than others. I definitely think that they're still powerful armies, but this is Chaos Space Marines is an army that is definitely up there. They didn't lose a whole lot, and they were already competing with like a 50% win rate. So I like to think of it as if you're in a horrible meta and you have a 50% win rate, there's something to look at there for sure.
I still think that Eldrit's probably at the top. If you're going to go with that, it's just tough for me not to have that. They still have just so deep in their index of ridiculously good shit. You have to be better to play them now. You can't just Wraith Knight it up. I still think that GSC is legit. They definitely got banged, but I don't think they're dead. I don't think they're at the top. I don't think they're the top 3, but I just wanted to throw that out there. They did super well over the weekend, and I was like, see.
Well, you know we're already on that. If I'm gonna say things that I'm gonna prepare for, so instead of giving you a top 3, I'll do things that I would prepare for always. I'm always gonna prepare for Eldar, no matter what anyone tells me or what they do. I've been playing that army in practice. You absolutely need a plan for it. I would prepare for GSE because it is actually surprisingly easy to prepare for GSE as long as you know how they work. They're very much a gimmick army if you don't understand how to play against them. And once you do, you will start to watch GSE's decisions completely change based on you moving in the correct place. And then you're going to start playing the game.
Yeah.
100%. I'm not going to be as heavily worried about Custodes anymore. Now that my dev wound guns just pick up 65 point, sometimes 70 point, sometimes 50 point custodians.
It's also the fact that they're just not bringing 10-man squads.
Exactly.
That is a big thing.
They are much easier to stomach. I know that longtime Custodes player Jeremy Stan, one of my good friends, is slowly working off of Custodes because it just feels really bad.
Detoxing himself.
Yeah. He is very much a golden Chad. Very much a golden Chad, and he is learning that not having a save against dev wounds is very bad.
Yeah.
So I prepare for those. I think you see things like the Texas meta where if you are playing all guard all the time, that is what I'm afraid of.
They have a lot of things. They have a lot of guard. They've got a lot of guard. They've got a lot of knights. They've got a lot of vehicles. Period. To be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's part of it. Is I don't think a guard parking lot is going to win a tournament. I do think a guard parking lot is going to take out some Eldar players on the way to its first loss. And I think that's where we're going to see Eldar sit, is at a nice 55 to 60% win rate, where they just get slapped by things they could not possibly prepare for. And then the people who don't run into that, the Eldar players who don't run into that, are going to cruise up and play some really, really powerful games.
I'm trying to figure out where CSM actually goes, because I think CSM piloted by somebody that's really good with CSM is terrifying, because their damage output is just bonkers town.
Yeah, and that's something where even if CSM index is a little far away for all you watching, you're good. It turns out if you just have enough damage, that solves most of your problems. I don't care how broken your rules are.
We're gonna do Tom style on that. Just pick up all their models. Just don't worry about it. Just kill everybody.
I identify with that way too much. Where are my Grey Knights? Where are my teleporting Grey Knights? Give me AP2 on my guns. Come on.
Settle down. Settle down, Grey Knights. You still have the best rules in the game. Just because you have to throw poop at people. They're really annoyed at you, but they're not dying from it. Uh-oh. Heidi's entered the building. We're going to do some stuff. Still the best name in the game. Paint Celestine, always. See, we had to talk about that. We got a DOG member. Alex is left today. Alex Singh is going to the LGT. And he brought his sisters and armigers with them. We were just going over it last night. And it's hanging on that sisters bandwagon. He's just like, I could take one of my better armies, or I'm going to wreck with sisters on LGT terrain, or UKTC terrain. Good times. Let's do the better half of GK Tampa. Are you going to Tampa? What are you bringing?
I am going to Tampa. There will be a group chat with some of the DOG guys to solidify my list, because I've only attended, outside of team tournaments, I've only attended one golden ticket event, and I got like 8th after playing for first twice. So I'm going to try to win Tampa, which means my decisions for my list will probably be locked in, but which one I go with will very much be a team effort.
Man, I mean, there is no
That's
try.
Right.
Do or do not.
That's right, old man. You got to help me. No more just sending me 400 orc lists in the middle of the night.
Fine. If you're going to be like that, I'll actually help. So, everybody, thanks for hanging out. Do me a favor, like and subscribe if you could. Really helps us out a huge amount. Also, throw it in the Discord. What do you want to see for the next couple? We're planning on doing couple. Tom and I, Tom's super excited. He's like, I want to do a deal with it, Tal. So we're going to do a faction focus, Tal, with Tom and I. Yeah, he's
Exciting.
super juiced. And rock it out. But I'd like to see what you guys like to hear from you for what we want to put out in the next couple deal with it. So let us know.
Yeah, and don't forget to check out my channel. We're streaming live there right now too. That's Dice with Rice 40K. Please hit a like and subscribe on mine too, so I know which content is awesome and which content is not awesome. So thank you.
Later, Gators. Oh, sorry everybody. Stay milky.